Welcome back to another FPL video. Today we're talking about the transfer tips for Game Week 5, and we have the international break upon us, and a lot could change. The likes of Heung-min Son on screen does have an international game today against Wales, and yet another one in a few days' time. So let's keep an eye out for injuries and anything else that could happen. You can also see the most transferred in players this week. Let me know if any of those names is maybe someone you're looking to bring in this week, and I would definitely encourage anyone watching to hold off from your transfers and at least wait until next week once most of the international games have cleared up. If you end up enjoying this video, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. We're getting ever closer towards 20,000 subscribers, so thank you very much for all your support. And also a huge shout out goes to the patrons and channel members. We do have exclusive early access for all members, and you also have new badges and emojis to use in the live chat and videos of any single one that I post on this channel. But let's get straight into this and talk about the players to buy, hold, sell and skip. Heung-min Son is the most transferred in player this week, as I showed earlier in this video, with over 370,000 transfers in, and there is a bit of a curse going on, and I did cover this in the reaction stream. So the most transferred in player in Game Week 2 was Ben Chilwell, he blanked. In Game Week 3 it was Mbumo, he blanked, and in Game Week 4 it was Raheem Sterling, and you guessed it, he also blanked. Will the same fate fall upon Heung-min Son at home to Sheffield United? I personally believe he will score if he plays down the middle. He will have a good performance, but I don't see his ceiling being anywhere near as high as it was against Burnley, who also conceded to Matty Cash on 2 occasions the week prior. But Sheffield United should keep things a bit tighter, play a low block, which Heung-min Son maybe doesn't struggle against, but he doesn't have as much joy as he would against the high line. So oddly enough, it could be the games against Arsenal and Liverpool where Son does even better than he does against Sheffield United at home. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But his ownership is now over 10%, and it's just going up and up because of so many transfers in. He's got 3 goals this season, all of them coming in the Burnley game, so that's only 1 return from 4 matches so far, a bit similar to Raheem Sterling when we all bought him in ahead of Game Week 4. So I would be at least a bit cautious. I'd urge a bit of caution and not just jump the gun and go for Heung-min Son. I personally prefer James Maddison. I think he's been more consistent over the past year, dating back to his time with Leicester, and if he can stay injury free, I think he offers tremendous value. And everything Tottenham do goes through Maddison. He can get bonus points, score from distance. He's really good from set pieces. So I think James Maddison is still the one I'd go for. If you look at the expected goal involvements for Son, it's still pretty decent, but the majority came in that match against Burnley, where he got 2 big chances, and in every other game, not a single big chance for the South Korean. So I would be a bit concerned about Heung-min Son, especially if he goes down to the left again, and that's where I would definitely look to skip him. But if Son continues to play down the middle, I think he's worth buying, even with those difficult fixtures coming up. And I'm not expecting him to get a huge return against Sheffield United, to be quite frank with you, but I think he will do well. And over the next 5-6 game weeks, Spurs have some very good fixtures overall, and Son is still a good purchase. If you look at his expected goals and expected assists, they're actually 1.36 each, so very good balance there. But if he continues to play down the middle, it's going to be predominantly XG, fewer chances created, and it was actually in Game Week 3 against Bournemouth on the left hand side where he created 4 chances, and that's where I was talking about him as a potential good FPL option. But him being shifted down to the middle made him so much more appealing, and that hat-trick against Burnley has gotten all of our attention. So Heung-min Son is worth a buy, but if you're looking to buy a Spurs midfielder, my answer would still be James Maddison. I talked about skipping Udogie a few weeks ago. I thought Spurs would concede against Bournemouth, and even in games like Burnley, I expected them to concede. But Udogie's attacking threat has been very impressive, and when he gets those assists, he's also very good for the bonus points. He's already gotten 4 already. His ownership is around 13.5%, 2 assists. His expected goal involvement is also really impressive, and both his XG and expected assists are over 0.5. So I'm really impressed by Udogie. I think he's got a lot of potential, and at the moment, he is one of the better left-backs in the Premier League. He's got 23 FPL points overall, and he's certainly worth that 4.7 million price tag. I wouldn't expect clean sheets against Arsenal, Liverpool, but you look at Luton, Fulham and Sheffield United, I think Spurs could keep clean sheets in 2 of those 3 games. And if you have the squad depth, you can rotate Udogie with Rico Henry and also other defenders around that price point, and you can also maybe target these really plum fixtures coming up. And also when Udogie has the tougher games, you can easily bench him. So I think Udogie is a solid purchase. I was wrong about him. I don't suddenly think Tottenham are amazing defensively. I have to say that and reiterate it, but I'm certainly more impressed, and they are better than what I gave them credit for. So while Postecoglou is known for his attacking style of play and Tottenham have been one of the more exciting teams to watch, I still think they can keep the odd clean sheet here and there, and Udogie also has already had one big chance and one big chance created with 4 key passes. Really impressive numbers for a 4.7 million defender, and only a handful of defenders have more touches inside the opposition box amongst defenders. So I think Udogie is a solid option if you're looking for a budget defender. Just bear in mind, I wouldn't expect clean sheets against Arsenal and Liverpool, and I would bench him in those game weeks. There are so many midfielders to choose from this season, and even amongst Aston Villa assets, you've got 3 or 4 that make a case for being really good FPL options. And at this moment in time, Diaby is certainly more appealing than an Ollie Watkins up front, who is 1.4 million more expensive, and yet he hasn't scored a single Premier League goal so far. And Diaby has got 2 goals to his name already, including on his debut against Newcastle. He's got an assist. His expected goal involvements is 2.54, which is incredible considering it's only 4 games, and he's a 6.6 million midfielder, and he's got 24 FPL points already. You look at the fixtures as well, and Chelsea away and Brighton away, yeah, maybe not the easiest fixtures on paper, but I think Chelsea away is still relatively decent. Brighton's the only really difficult one in my opinion, and Aston Villa should do very well in the vast majority of the upcoming games, and Aston Villa are also in the top 2 or 3 in the FDR over the next 6 game weeks, so Diaby is certainly worth a purchase. He blanked in the last game week, and I have to say I was very disappointed by Aston Villa against Liverpool, but they faced Liverpool at Anfield, and I think Aston Villa will do really well in their home games, but there is a bit of a concern, I have to admit, in terms of their performances away from home against better sides like Newcastle and Liverpool, and that's where the likes of Diaby might not be as appealing, but because he's so cheap, you can still bench him in certain game weeks, and even then, he scored against Newcastle, and he's such a threat on the counter-attack. So Diaby is certainly worth a purchase. A few other stats to consider is that he's had 9 shots overall, with 5 on target, 7 in the box. His XG is 1.04, his expected assist is 1.50, he's had 1 big chance, he's created 3 big chances and 7 key passes, so the creativity is also going under the radar. You can expect a few more assists from him, especially if Ollie Watkins can get his shooting boots on, so Diaby is certainly worth purchasing if you're looking for a budget midfielder. A lot of people are considering selling Ollie Watkins. You've got the likes of Julian Alvarez, who's doing extremely well in the forward position. He's even cheaper, and Man City are looking like such a force once again. You've got Wissa, who has been very good so far this season, and you've got a few alternatives like Awani, who has returned in 8 consecutive games dating back to last season. But Ollie Watkins did very well in the first 3 game weeks, at least providing an assist each time. He hasn't scored yet, blanked against Liverpool, and he's done well in the Conference League qualifiers. But I still think Ollie Watkins is worth holding with those fixtures coming up, and as I said, Aston Villa are ranked really highly in terms of the fixture difficulty rating, so I would hold on to Ollie Watkins. I think the returns will come. I know Crystal Palace at home isn't an easy game, and I'd actually probably class that as the 2nd most difficult game over the next 5 game weeks, but I still think Watkins can do really well, especially in the home fixtures, and it's only a matter of time before the goals come. In terms of his underlying numbers, he's had 4 big chances, his XG is 1.75, the expected assist is 0.9, so there's a huge overperformance in terms of assists so far. He's had 10 shots, only 3 on target, but 9 were inside the box. He's also created a big chance himself, and he's also delivered 8 key passes. So there's still some pretty decent stats, nothing spectacular, and Ollie Watkins is known to be a very frustrating FPL asset. Only 17 points to his name so far this season, but I'm still very confident the returns will come, and I think Ollie Watkins is a good forward to have over the next 5 to 6 game weeks. Around a week or 2 ago, I was really conflicted in terms of holding or selling Salah, and I said for most people, I'd probably sell if it means you can make major upgrades in the rest of your team. That's the main problem with having Salah alongside Haaland. It does limit the rest of your midfield or potentially other key positions in your FPL team, but if you have Salah, it's very difficult for me to say sell him when he's got Wolves away next, and he's got West Ham at home, and still some pretty decent fixtures from Salah's perspective. In game week 9, especially if a lot of us are considering a wild card around game week 8 or 9, I'd highly recommend having Salah on that wild card because he has Everton at home in game week 9 and Nottingham Forest at home in game week 10, and Salah's long-term fixtures are pretty good to say the least. His underlying numbers are always spectacular, but 2 goals, 2 assists so far this season. And his expected goal involvements is almost 5. That's really, really good numbers. I know he's 12.5 million and this is the very least he can do. And he still hasn't justified that price tag just yet, but I think he certainly will over the next few game weeks. He also has 23 FPL points, which isn't bad, but Salah is certainly capable of more. But his XG alone is 2.77. His expected assist is 2.22. He's also had 4 big chances created, 7 key passes, 14 shots, 7 on target, and 9 in the box. So Mohamed Salah is always going to be impressive in terms of underlying numbers on the eye test, and I think Liverpool look very strong. I would back them to finish in the top 3, and I don't see much difference between them, Arsenal, and then you have Man City in their own sphere. The lowest they can finish is second, but Arsenal and Liverpool are looking in decent shape to challenge them, and Liverpool might not be to the same standards as they were a few years ago when they chased the quadruple, but they are looking solid, much better than last season. But of course, it's early days. Let's see what happens. I think Salah will stay at Liverpool, and I don't believe he will go to Saudi Arabia. If he did, I think that's a massive blow to the Reds, and it honestly demotes them from a potential title challenger to struggling to finish inside the top 4. That's how important Salah is, despite the really good depth they have in the forward position. So Salah is worth holding. Would I buy him in just now? Maybe not. Unless you're on the wild card, you can make overhaul changes, and you're in a position where having Salah doesn't jeopardize the rest of your squad. Sterling owners were very unlucky in game week 4. He had a big chance himself, which he should have been a bit quicker to react to. It was great defending by Nottingham Forest, and he also created a big chance for Jackson, which wasn't converted. And I still think his overall performance against Nottingham Forest was decent. He scored in both games last season against them, and of course Bournemouth up next is his favourite opponent historically, mainly from his time at Man City, but you'd still back Sterling to do well over the next 4 game weeks, and I think that Burnley away fixture might be the best one of the lot. You look at Heung-min Son and Matty Cash, they delivered huge returns against Burnley, and Raheem Sterling could do something similar. But Chelsea aren't clicking offensively. They're creating chances. They shouldn't be conceding as many goals as they are, but things are still maybe down to a lack of chemistry, learning what Mauricio Pochettino is trying to do. And this system they're currently employing is different to what they did in pre-season, which does leave some fans a bit bemused and also perplexed as to why Pochettino's changed things. Chilwell is essentially playing as a left winger, and maybe if they played a natural winger down that side alongside Raheem Sterling and Jackson, you could see a much more free-flowing front three and Chelsea will score more goals. But Jackson isn't finishing his dinner right now, and Raheem Sterling will be a frustrating asset. But over the next 4 game weeks, it's very difficult for me to say sell him, especially when I was talking about buying him last week, and I still think he's a decent option. Maybe not to the same levels as James Maddison, and I did say this going into game week 4. My preference was Mbeumo first, Maddison second, and Sterling third. I maintained that ranking, despite the fixtures still going in Sterling's favour over the next 4 game weeks. But I certainly wouldn't sell the Englishman. He's got 2 goals and 1 assist, all of them coming against Luton Town. His expected goal involvement is 2.53, so very similar numbers to Heung-min Son actually, and he's got 25 FPL points so far this season. His ownership is going down slightly. He's not being mass sold, but there are more transfers out than in, and I don't think that's the right call heading into game week 5. And as for the underlying numbers, he's got 9 shots in the box, 9 shots overall, 3 on target. His XG is 1.58, and he's had 3 big chances with 6 key passes. So I think the underlying numbers are okay, nothing great, but they do point towards more returns coming in the future, and I think Sterling is a decent asset. Maybe not the best in the midfield, but don't sell him ahead of game week 5. Brighton's fixtures are terrible over the next 5 game weeks. Man United away, Liverpool at home, Man City away, even Aston Villa away looks really difficult. But with the injuries Man United have at the back, which include Lindelof potentially, Varane and Luke Shaw, I think Brighton will score a goal at Old Trafford, and Mitoma is a good hold for the next 2 game weeks. After that, you could consider selling him, and you could still sell him now, to be fair. It's kind of on the edge, and you have so many other midfielders like Diaby with better fixtures, Mbeumo, Maddison, you name it, and that's what makes it difficult to sell Mitoma. But I think he'll do well over the next 2 game weeks. I have to say that. Afterwards, it looks a bit different, and I think he'll blank in most of the games, such as Aston Villa away, Liverpool at home, and Man City away. I'd be very surprised if he returned in 2 of those 3 games, but I think over the next 2 game weeks, Mitoma is worth holding. It's not really a longer term play. It's just looking at the short term and the fixtures and what Mitoma could possibly do. He's got 1 goal and 3 assists so far this season. His expected assist is 1.86, so there is an overperformance, but he has been providing that creativity for Brighton. He's got 23 FPL points so far, 7 shots inside the box. His XG isn't good, it's only 0.8, but his creativity definitely makes up for that, and he's had 14 key passes. So Mituma's been very impressive so far this season. I don't think he'll score many goals, but he will get the assists and he'll make up for it with the bonus points from time to time, and I think he'll do well over the next 2 game weeks. Let me know if you disagree, but I think that Man United fixture remains pretty decent. The only sell of this video is Mikel Antonio. I was never keen on him, even heading into that Luton Town game where I thought he'd do well, but he didn't even do that, and his underlying numbers are very poor to say the least. In terms of Jarrod Bowen and James Ward-Prowse, you could make a case for keeping them and then starting them against Sheffield United at home, which is a very good differential, but I don't think it's worth it with Man City, Liverpool, Newcastle and Aston Villa over the next 5. I think West Ham will struggle in those games, and whilst Bowen and James Ward-Prowse could still tick along nicely, I'm still not too sure if their ceiling will be as high as the alternatives in the midfield that we've discussed today and also in recent videos. But as for Antonio, his underlying numbers aren't good and he is the easiest sell of the lot. His ownership is 5.5%. He's got 2 goals so far, 0 assists. His XG is 0.8 and he's got 4 bonus points. So in terms of bonus points, FPL points and goals, all really good, but the underlying numbers tell a different story. He's only had 5 shots, 3 on target, 5 shots in the box. As I said, his XG is very poor. His expected assist is 0.19. Only 1 big chance and 1 key pass. So these numbers are frankly terrible. I know he's a cheap striker, but you look at Awani and all these alternatives like Wissa and Julian Alvarez, they're all much better options in the long term. Antonio had a very good start to the season maybe 3 years ago. I had him for that and he did very well for the first 3 gamings, but afterwards he was a really poor FPL option for the vast majority of that season. So Antonio is a sell, especially with those fixtures and those underlying numbers. With Bowen and James Ward-Prowse, it's a bit difficult, but I'd still say they're arguably sells as well because there are much better alternatives with better fixtures. Ferguson was pulled out of the Republic of Ireland squad due to a knee injury, and that's not the reason why I'm talking about skipping him. I have to confess, I think Ferguson is a top quality forward, at least he has the potential to become one, and he's already showing signs. That hat-trick against Newcastle was highly impressive. I think he'll be available for Man United, and to be honest, if he is, and he starts these 2 games coming up, I think he's going to do extremely well. But the reason why I'm going to skip him is because in the last year or so, Ferguson hasn't gotten a consistent run of starts and there is rotation with the other forwards, and that would put me off immensely in the long term. But at 6 million, if he gets a consistent run of starts, I think Ferguson turns from a skip into a buy. You might have better alternatives like Wissa, Alvarez and Awani, but I think Ferguson is right up there if he can get those consistent minutes and starts, but I'm still not too sure if that's going to be the case. He's got 4 goals this season, his ownership is 7.8%, he's had 13 shots so far this season and 25 FPL points, and he's one of the most transferred in players this week, and of course that yellow flag might put some people off, but once that clears up, I think more and more people are going to buy him. He's got an XG of 2.6, 4 big chances, and he's also had 1 key pass. So Ferguson is a good striker. In the long term, I think he's going to become a great FPL option, but until I can see he gets a consistent run of starts, I'm not going to recommend him for now. And you also factor in the next 5 fixtures for Brighton. They might score in all of them, to be honest, because they've got a great attack, but is Ferguson going to start every single one of those games? I'm not so sure, and that's why Ferguson is a skip. The final forward and player discussed in this video today is Edouard. He is also a skip, despite the fact that he's 5.5 million. And if you are looking for a striker at that price and below, I have to confess, Edouard looks like the best option at the moment, even over Carlton Morris, who I thought would be the best. But of course, there is still some time. He's got some great fixtures coming up too. But Edouard's ownership is 2.4%, a massive differential. And Palace's fixtures are kind of mixed bag. Aston Villa away, Fulham at home, Nottingham Forest at home looks pretty decent. Even United away might not be too bad. But overall, the fixtures aren't amazing. And Edouard has some very good underlying numbers. That's the difference between him and Antonio. And if I had to pick between those two, Edouard all day long at this moment in time. He's got 3 goals so far this season, 2 coming against Wolves in Game Week 4. He's had 4 big chances, 24 FPL points. And it doesn't stop there. He's got 19 shots, 8 of them on target, 18 shots inside the box. His XG is 2.63, and he also has 3 key passes. Really good numbers. I think Eze is the best Crystal Palace asset, but Edouard is certainly in contention at this moment in time, and the underlying numbers are spectacular, it has to be said. So if you are looking for a 5.5 million forward, then fair enough. I think Edouard is a decent acquisition, but for just a little bit more, you can get Wissa, Alvarez, Awani, and I think those are 3 better options in the long term. And you also look at Crystal Palace's fixtures, they aren't particularly great. So I would skip Edouard. Let me know if you disagree, because I'm seeing a lot of love for him and his ownership is really low. So why not go for someone completely different? But I don't think he will sustain this in the long term. And I also think there are better alternatives elsewhere. We have reached the end of this video and we have talked about 10 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. On screen you can see the most transferred up players so far this game week, and let me know what you think down in the comment section below if you disagree with any of my selections, and if there are any other players you want to discuss with the rest of the community as well as myself. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Let's try to get this video to over 300 likes. Let's keep on pushing towards 20,000 subscribers and beyond. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and also check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. All of that is there. I'd also highly encourage you to check out Draft Town, which is a great tool for FPL managers. I wish you all the best of luck for Game Week 5. I hope you enjoy the rest of the international break, and I'll see you next time.